Rev up your engine. A Mazda Miata, the guy just bought it used. Had a lot of work done on it, and for some reason, it keeps running lean. He had a K&N oil filter that it came with. They can ruin the mass sensor, so he switched to the dry flow. If you're going to run one of these, use the dry flow. You can see it's had a really nice aluminum radiator. It came with it when he bought it. Struts have been all done over. That was all done before he bought it, but it keeps running lean. Now we'll start it up and listen, because lean, a lot of times, vacuum leaks somewhere. And I don't hear any leaks. It's all super tight. Now this is a little funky here. It's got too much play. Now if you get a little started fluid, you can see it's leaking a little. So we'll examine it a little bit closer. Check it out. See how that's all cracked up? It's not sealing right. Now, this is by no means a permanent fix, but Gorilla Tape makes good for testing and kind of emergency fixes. Cut a piece of it off, and we'll just make a little seal, and then we'll cut the edge off. You gotta cut the edge off because you don't want to block the sensor. You just gotta keep cutting it around till you get the whole thing clear, and then you can pull it off. Like they say, it's Gorilla Strong. They're not joking. Now I've cut it, so I'll start unraveling it because it's so strong I can't pull it off yet. We're halfway there. Be careful not to cut your fingers. I've done that numerous times. Now we'll push it in the hole. All right, I made it a little bit too thick, so now I got to take a little bit of the layer off. That's the advantage of putting too much on. You can always take some off. You want it so it slips in snug, but it doesn't bind up. When you modify things, sometimes there's a lot of guesswork involved. Well, it's just too wiggly, so we're going to try something else. All right, so we're going to take this off, and this will be more of a permanent fix. First, we'll take the elbow off, because he's got a piece inside there too, he said. And he wasn't lying, there was a piece in there. We're going to use JB Weld and fix it right. We're going to unplug this, and then we're going to seal it correctly in here. You can see it's a relatively tight fit, but not tight enough. We got a little screwdriver here. We'll pull off the old rot and seal. His little intake there, this is custom, and he had to drill the hole himself. So what we're going to do is, we're going to put JB Weld all around here. It'll seat it perfectly, and stick that in a JB Weld, and then the inside we'll have the other ring to keep it from wiggling around. Once the JB Weld sets up, and it only takes 10 minutes to set up, it'll be permanent then. This JB Weld's amazing stuff. You get some of the liquid steel and squeeze it out, and put the cap on tight so it doesn't go bad. Then you get the hardener and squeeze an equal length out, so they're about the same length. Put that top back on, and stir it all up. And we'll make a nice seal all inside. First we'll put it all the way around. That's why I use a bunch of the stuff. Who cares if there's extra left over? We want to make it the whole way around, so it's going to make a good seal. Then we'll push it down and pull that up to hold it in place. But don't do a sloppy job like me, because you got to wipe it off the connector or it won't snap back on. And then get any extra and stick it around so it sticks good. And it won't leave any air gaps. You can see it's sealed the whole way around now. We'll let it dry about 10 minutes. We'll hook up the computer to analyze it when it's running. Turn the key on so the idiot lights are on. Turn on the computer. We'll have to do this manually because it's a 99. Got to manually select because it's too old. 99, there we go. Manual transmission. Okay, now it's hooking up. So we'll check to see. Yes, it's nice and hard now. So we'll get the clamps so we don't forget to put them back on. Now you want these nice and tight because you don't want any air leaks. So make sure it's over the metal part before you tighten it up. You gotta make them nice and tight. Now we'll start it up and look at the data. Knows what it is, the Mazda 99. We'll start it up and we'll do a smart scan. Now it is a 99. So you're not going to get as much information as a new one for sure, but there is some. One code for the PCM, System 2 lane, Bank 1. But of course that's a stored code. I didn't reset the code yet. Because it gives you all the possibilities. Low fuel pressure, leaking regulator, bad injectors, air leaks, vacuum leaks. Many things can cause it. It's a 99. These old cars, they don't do that all that fast. Checking the obvious things here. Now the fuel tank pressure, it's not holding. Now this is part of the Evap system and that's not working right. So if you get a vacuum leak in the Evap system, that can make the car run lean. There's yet another leak. But before we jump to conclusions, let's look at the rest of the data. Now it is long term adding 14.8%. So it's running lean. There's no arguing that. Now here's the short-term fuel. It's still running lean. It's adding 25% fuel. Let's rev it up and see what happens. You can see now it's going down more to normal, which generally shows you have a small vacuum leak somewhere. So it did have that little leak in the front, but there's still another leak. And it's probably in the Evap system, because the Evap system's showing red data. It's the only thing out of all this data that's showing red data. Anti-pollution equipment is malfunctioning, causing the car to run lean, mainly at idle speed. Now, unfortunately, this is a 99, so my machine can't do bidirectional testing on it, which would make it a lot easier. I'm using my all data, and on this particular model, definite problem. And that's tank pressure control valve that's on top of the gas tank. They leak and they do exactly this. And you saw on my machine how it had the red data for the fuel pressure testing for the tank. That's testing it, so it's probably that. Now, I don't think he wants to buy a very expensive part from Mazda, but it runs good enough because he lives here in Clarksville where you don't need to get your car's emissions inspected. If you lived in an emissions area, you got to fix it. You couldn't legally get your car inspected. The registration will be invalid because they won't let you pass the test. Now, this is up to him, so what do we find out? Well, the machine was good enough to show us it's a problem in the Evap system, but he's thinking about modifying the car and he might take it all apart and check, because it could also be one of the lines has rotten, it's an old car, one of the rubber hoses has fallen off or has a crack, but you're gonna have to pull the gas tank to do it, and it runs pretty good otherwise, and they don't do inspections here, so he can legally drive it this way. Or if he really wants to go the simplest way, which of course is technically illegal, you can just delete the entire Evap system by taking the hoses and everything off, and so they're no longer sucking any air from the engine, and then it won't have a vacuum leak anymore. It's up to the individual. I just give the data and then say, here's how far you might want to go, and if you want to go further and pull the gas tank, you see something obvious wrong that you can fix, go right ahead, because there is a vacuum leak in the Evap system, and they can be absolute stinkers. And if the car runs good enough, it only, as you saw with the data, it only does it when it's going at low speeds idle. At high speeds, it leans right out. So it's a very small leak on the system. And if you did just delete the system, it wouldn't exist anymore. And if the leak went away, I'm not deleting the system because I'm a mechanic. So I leave that up to the owners. And here's some bonus questions and answers. Now here's an interesting one. Porsche is reinventing the turbocharger. So it doesn't have lag and it's so more efficient, so gasoline engines can go further into the future by running more efficiently, not polluting as much. Of course, being Porsche and Germans, it's an extremely complex way of making them work better. A lot of them now putting dual turbochargers on, because if there's two of them, then there's less strain on the one, and they don't have turbo lag and stuff. Of course, it costs a lot of money to do that. Well, Porsche is doing it with one turbocharger, but they're doing it with a completely different design. They have two little spinners that run off the exhaust gas, and they're hooked up to generators, and they're generating electricity, right? And then the electricity is used to operate the turbocharger, which is a partially electronically run turbocharger. The reason that turbochargers use the exhaust gas is because it's easy, it's there, it spins, it's direct. It's more simple, right? You just got to spin on one side of the turbine, the other side compresses the air and blows it in. This is adding yet an insane level of technology. Well, now your little spinners on your exhaust system are running generators, and then the computer can control the electronic turbocharger better than just the pure one that's spinning by just the direct connection of the exhaust gas spins the turbine, where if you're using it to generate electricity, it's more efficient. But think of the level of complexity. What could possibly go wrong, right? I mean, if you got electronic turbochargers, right away, they get hot. Electricity and heat don't go together well. I'm sure that stuff's going to short out over a certain period of time and break. But it's Porsche, you know. The technology is phenomenal. They have phenomenal technology. As for the repairs, not so phenomenal. You know, I mean, the Germans always seem to follow the same line like they did with their Tiger tanks in World War II. They kept making them bigger and bigger, and they kept breaking down more and more. They couldn't go 100 kilometers without breaking down. They get in the battlefield, and they get stuck because they weighed too much. Or then they'd break, and they got to pull the whole engine out to change one little part, where on a Sherman, you could do the job in an hour. I mean, the Germans are always thinking of this great technology, but they don't think about, well, what happens if it breaks? They're like, oh, well, you buy another one, I guess. Interesting technology, but one, the cost is a ton, and then when they break, the repairs are going to be a ton too. You can see that. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.